A very big welcome to all the viewers watching Soul to Soul talk show. Today we will be continuing this spiritual journey with another personality from Brazil, Brother Ken O'Donnell. He is a former management consultant and has been associated with the Brahmakumaris since over 38 years, and presently he is coordinating the centers in South America. Welcome to the show, brother.
Welcome.
Pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks very much. It's really a great honor to be here. Thanks.
Honor is ours too. Brother, could you share with us a few, say, milestones in your professional life?
Yeah, well, I was working in, I studied industrial chemistry, and I was working in research and development after I finished my studies in the food industry, and later on in the cosmetics industry. And I was not very satisfied actually, and I decided to go for a journey. And on that journey I came to know Brahmakumaris, and finally I went back to Australia and started one of the centres in Sydney. And then I was asked to go to Brazil, so I had to survive. So my professional life has been always a challenge because I'd studied something very specific and I knew a lot about certain things, and I offered some services and I wrote some books actually on organisation development, and they became very well accepted. And then I was in demand to sort out situations in companies and actually ministries, governments. I've worked with big corporations over the years in all continents, and also several presidents here and there, in more specifically President Fox from Mexico. So it's always been about making organizations and their people better. So in a way, what I was learning about my own development, I could use it in sorting out very difficult situations.
Brother, you told that when you were working with the industry, you were not satisfied with that work. So was that one of the reasons that you went looking for an organization like Brahmakumaris?
Not exactly.
Or was it by chance that you just
No, it wasn't by chance. I was very conscious because I had a very special education. I went to a school for kids who had a special school in Sydney that they got the 30 kids who had the highest IQs in the city, and they made a school from them. And so I was in a very special school, and I was at an early age in contact with the classical writings, Greek and Roman philosophy and so on. So I was very familiar. I could see that I had an idea that there were some secrets there, and most religions practically, and they were practically saying the same things with different stories and different people and different figureheads, but basically the same message. Human beings have to overcome their own negativity, and they have to go to God for that. So I was trying to understand that, and that's probably why I went on a journey. I went on a journey from Australia to Europe. The first bit, of course, was by sea, but then I went by land from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey, like that, and finally I got to England. So by crossing the continents, I came into touch with Buddhism and Islam and Hinduism, and then the Orthodox version of Christianity. And so I had a big eye open in that. It took 6 months, that journey, and so it was like, I was very young. I was only 20, 21, and it really opened my eyes about what I felt, that human beings had pretty much the same problems everywhere, and therefore the solution should be fairly similar as well. And that's what I was looking for.
What was the main objective of this journey that you took?
To get to know the world, basically, to get to know the different traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see, for example, that mothers in Australia and mothers in India and mothers in Afghanistan, they suffer the same if their child is hurt or dead or something, or people get angry for the same reasons, you know. And I could see people with rosary in their hand in different places, different sorts of rosaries, and at the same time shouting with others. So I thought, well, you know, the cultural differences are very superficial. The language differences are very superficial. There must be something deeper. And so I was looking for something deeper.
And where did you find it?
Well, I mean, I'm still... I think it's not something you find and that's it. It's something that you, at least, for example, you see this table here, there's some flowers in the middle, there's a big round sort of glass. So you can see the whole thing. But maybe within those flowers even there's a deeper secret, let's say. And so even spiritual development with the Brahmakumaris, I've got the right table, I think, and the right flowers, but still I don't think you can say you're finished.
Diving deeper, you're still diving
deeper, yeah.
Brother, as a management consultant, you will have to teach the art of management to others. But was there, did you have to first teach yourself this art to, and you know, teach others? How did you like excel at it?
Well, it was interesting because I got to know Brahmakumaris in 1975 in London. We were the first foreigners. We didn't know it at the time, but we were amongst the first 5 or 6 foreigners. And after a few months, I was here in India on my way back to Australia, and I came to Mount Abu, and I was the only foreigner at the time, and it was like a bit different, a bit strange. But I was very well received and treated like a prince, I would say, that's come home. And then I went back to Australia, and soon after I got there, there had been a BK centre there. It closed because there weren't any students, or they were trying to get things started. And the brother from England who actually started things there, he was on his way back to the UK. And the 2 sisters from India, one was going to Germany and the other one was going to New Zealand or Mauritius, I don't remember. And so I was there alone, and I got all of the things that were there in the centre, and I kept them in my parents' home. And then I got the inspiration, no, this is not right. You know, I can't occupy my dad's garage with all of this stuff. So I wrote to Daddy Prakash Mani, and said, look, I think it's best if I start a centre. And so, okay. At the same time, I found a job. So in the same area of the city also, just a few blocks away. So a centre was here and the job was here. So my development, my professional development really was parallel to my spiritual development. It was at the same time. And so I was noticing things. You know, I was working at that time, I was working in a big cosmetics company in the R&D section in the laboratory. And so it required a lot of concentration and a lot of, I would say, dedication. And as time went on, and as I was progressing in my career, I was also learning more and more about meditation. So I thought, well, in my education, nothing prepared me to work with people. I was prepared to work with things, right, and numbers and formulas and substances, but not with human beings. Right. So I thought, well, this is strange, you know. I'm learning in the BK Centre about how to interact with others and spiritual development, all about dharana, which is like practicing virtues in, in respect and love and so on. And it's something I had not learned in my professional education. So I thought, well, there are three things actually. One is the working with things, one is working with people, one is working with me. And those three areas are interconnected. The way I work with matter, the way I work with people, and the way I work with myself. They're all interconnected. And so I started to, later on I was asked to come to Brazil. And I went, and I had to work because there was I had 3 months to prove if I could do something or not. So I also, at that time, I got some work in a laboratory, and then I started to write books on personal development and organizational development. And they were picked up by publishers, and they were published, and they were doing well, and so I started to get called in. But it was all basically what I found lacking in the formal education about how to interact with others and how to reflect on myself. Those two ingredients added to being able to work with numbers and figures and substances. And so it was very, very, I would say, holistic approach to understanding how organizations and people in them work. And so I started to get called to sort out different things, and that's how it happened.
So you found a difference in the way you interacted after you got this knowledge and before?
Yeah, I guess so, but you know, it was a whole preparation, I suppose, everything even before that. For example, before I got to know Brahmakumaris, I was practicing Raj Yoga of Patanjali. So I knew the Niyama, Niyama, Pranayama and Asanas and the other Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. I knew all of the steps. And in fact I was practicing those principles, which are pretty much similar to the principles we practice in Brahmakumaris. I became a vegetarian because basically I'm a food chemist. And I stopped eating meat because of chemical reasons. Because I could see what people did to keep meat fresh, for example. And I was like, I'm not going to eat that.
Oh, so scientifically it's not good to eat meat?
No, I'm just saying that if you take a piece of flesh and you put it in and you analyze let's say you put it with water in a blender and then filter it, and you analyze what's in that liquid, you'll find the same ingredients that you'd find in the urine of the cow. Because when you kill an animal, the blood stops. Right? The things that would have been eliminated if the animal kept on living through the kidneys stops in the blood. So the urea and the formaldehyde and the uric acid and all of that's there. So I said, I'm not going to. Well, I'm not going to eat that. Then afterwards, I started to understand the more moral reasons, you know, the spiritual reasons. But before that was just purely chemical reasons. And of course, in the West, we're ignorant about these things. No one tells us these things. No one.
Other than the Brahmakumaris, any other spiritual organizations before meeting the Brahmakumaris have you been in touch with?
Not really. I was
like the Patanjali yoga.
No, I didn't really. I did that. I became interested because I was reading the Upanishads, and then I came into contact with the Patanjali's aphorisms. You know, the short phrases, the Yoga Sutras.
Right.
Very, very deep. You know, one phrase with such a lot of meaning, and so I could understand that. Yeah, this is interesting. And then when I got to London, and I was with some friends, and I said, where are you going this time of the morning? I was at their house. Oh, we're going to Raj Yoga Centre. I said, oh, wow, Raj Yoga. I didn't know we had a Raj Yoga Centre in England, because it's not really common in the West. I was reading books, basically. I was studying from books, and I was, you know, going into the depth of things. And really, I mean, I was brought up in my father is Catholic, and so my family is very strong Christian, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But then I couldn't make sense. I thought, why should one religion be better than the other religions? You know, I was always with this doubt. How come, you know, this one is better and more elevated than this other one? How can these people be saved and not 95% of the rest of humanity, you know? So I really was trying to understand a universal approach to the different religions. So I wouldn't say that I was committed to another religion before Brahmakumaris, really. I was trying to understand all of them.
So did you associate God with religion? Or did you?
No, there was a feeling of God, but I was a little bit confused because the tradition, and even Patanjali, the object of meditation is an omnipresent God, which was difficult. In fact, the object of meditation in Ashtanga Yoga, which is the Patanjali Yoga, the 8 steps, you can meditate, for example, on these flowers and become one with the flowers. And I couldn't understand how that was possible. So basically, I understood after coming to Brahmakumaris that this type of Raj Yoga was more, let's say, symbolically correct. For example, the postures are not postures of the body, but they're postures of yourself, how you face the world, right? So it's not like the Singasana, which is like you put your tongue out, you know. The line posture is the courage that you need to face the world. The lotus posture is the detachment. I started understanding
more on the subtle aspects of the postures. Focused.
Each posture, in fact, should be a posture of our lives, not of our bodies. And the pranayama means control of prana. How do you control that? Not just through breathing. I understood that if you start to have self-control, then everything starts to get controlled around you naturally. You don't have to control everything, but your own self-control makes things under control. And so on. And of course, the main thing, the main difference is the object of meditation is not anything and everything, but it's the incorporeal God. And that made a lot of sense to me, given the depth of my study. It makes it easy. I just connect up with the Supreme, you know, and that's it.
So did this art of Raj Yoga strengthen your faith in God, your respect for God, your love for God?
After coming to Brahmakumaris, yes. Not before.
Before that?
No.
You were not a believer in God?
I was a believer, but I didn't know God. You see, so it's hard. There's a lot of contradictions, you say, especially in Western traditions, that you're supposed to love someone and you're supposed to be afraid of him at the same time. You know, it's very difficult.
So, you know? Yeah, you didn't understand that.
The idea that we have of some father figure who gets angry from time to time and anything is his will, for example, is very difficult. You know, and when there's an earthquake or a flood or something, people say that's God's will. I couldn't understand it. How can God be like that? So I would say I had an ambiguous understanding of God. On one side there was a lot of love. I knew that there was a God, but on the other side, all of these things, this figure of, you know, some old man up in the sky throwing lightning on our heads, didn't match.
So did you ever want to seek the truth, or you know, want to understand it in a spiritual way?
Yeah, I mean, that was
thirst for spirituality.
That was definitely there. I was definitely seeking. I just didn't know what I was seeking, but I knew that there was an answer somewhere.
Because you weren't content with what you were doing.
I was comparing also. You know, for example, the story of Krishna when Kans found that the astrologers told him that there's a member of your family who's going to take your kingship at some point, and then he decided to kill all of the children. and the parents of Krishna hid him, and they put him in a basket
right.
and put him in there. It's exactly the same story, actually two stories. When Christ was born, the king called Herod, he was told by the astrologers that someone was born in his family who would take his kingship. And so he got all of the children killed under 5 years old. Same story. Exactly the same story. But then Moses, his parents, when the Pharaoh found out that Moses was going to be such an important person, his parents hid him and put him in a basket and put him in the river. Same story. So you see, when you start to compare the different traditions and you see the same stories, you say, wait a minute, they're all talking about the same thing. So if you look at the Quran or the Dhammapada or the Bible,
so you have read all these scriptures, brother?
Yeah, all of them.
Wow.
You look at, well, the Upanishad is more the dialogue between masters and disciples. But if you look at the Dhammapada and even other like the Taoist traditions, you find the same phrases. Even, for example, treat others as you like to be treated, and so on. The same story sometimes, but different names, different places, different epochs, but the same story. So there's a lot. There is a common ground. And of course, you have all of these traditions. They're like the ends of the spoke of a wheel, right? So each wheel is a different tradition. But if you go to the center of the wheel, it's the same thing.
Everything converges to the same concept.
The same thing. And that was what I was looking for. And that's what I found with Brahmakumaris.
So you didn't find it contradicting the scriptures that you read and the knowledge you found here?
No, not at all. I think it was very elucidating. I mean, it made it very clear for me that this is what it was all about. You know, the idea of the tree, for example. Wow, you know, God is the seed, and all of these different traditions are just branches. You know, the fact that that time is cyclic. You know, and it makes a lot of sense, especially from a more scientific background that I had. So there's a lot of sense to it.
Okay, brother, moving on with your personal life, could you tell us something about your family and your childhood upbringing?
Oh, it was fairly normal. We lived in a very beautiful part of Sydney, which is, you know, just over the back fence. There's a national park. Sydney, of course, a very beautiful city. Lots of beaches and rivers and so on. So there was a river nearby. It was a lot of forests, very beautiful area. And so it was very. And then I went to that special school. So I got to know lots of other kids, bright kids, and my education was more accelerated, I'd say. I played normal sports like every other kid, I suppose. No, my parents were very, very tranquil people, I would say. And I had was a big family, because it's a Catholic family. They tend to be big. My grandparents are Irish, so the tradition in Irish families was to have lots of kids. So I had another 6 brothers and sisters, and we played and got along okay. It was very nice, very nice. And then they moved to a place even more beautiful on the coast. So it was just close to the beach. So we were surfing and, you know, playing in the ocean. So it was very, very, very interesting, everything. But there weren't any major difficulties really.
Brother Ken shared with us his personal and professional life experiences before coming in contact with the Brahmakumaris, and the shift in his habits and his lifestyle after coming in contact with the Brahmakumaris. We will get to know more about his spiritual experiences in the forthcoming episode. Do join us in this journey. Thank you, brother, for joining us this. Thank you, viewers, for joining us in this episode. Do join us in the next. I extend a very warm welcome to all the viewers to yet another episode on the Soul to Soul talk show. Continuing with the journey with Brother Ken O'Donnell, we will be sharing a few more experiences about his life and his childhood and his spiritual journey after meeting with the Brahmakumaris. Before that, let's welcome Brother O'Kennel. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure's ours too. Brother, you were saying in the previous episode how your family had a lot of tranquility in it, and you were brought up in a strict Orthodox Christian sort of an atmosphere. So did that influence you to say, read scriptures from different religions? Did that make you a religious person?
No, the thing is that I wouldn't say that they were very strict. My aunties certainly were.
Okay.
But my mother, when I was 15 years old, she had a hysterectomy operation, and she, I would say, she died 4 or 5 minutes. That's the only thing I can say. And somehow or the other they revived her. And then she described what she went through, and she was a completely changed person after that. And she had this experience of leaving the body, which sometimes happen when people have an accident, or they leave and they're dead for 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And so she had this experience that she described later on, that I could see everything. I could see the doctors trying to revive. She had a rare blood group, and they had problems with a transfusion. And so she left the physical body, and she described that the doctors were trying to revive her heart, and she could see the whole scene as if she was floating away. And so her consciousness is floating away, watching the operation, and on the other side there's some light pulling her. And so she, well, should I go this way or should I go back this way? In that dilemma, she comes back. And then after that, she had no fear of death. For example, imagine you die and you come back and say what it's like to die. Because she was officially dead for a few minutes. Like there was no signs, there was no signals, there was no heart activity, no brain activity, and she came back. And then after that, she was a completely transformed person. And I was only 15. I started to think, wait a minute, if there's something that can leave the body and observe what's going on, first of all, it has to be conscious. And secondly, there has to be some sort of a vision, some sort of a way of seeing things. So what is it that leaves the body? So that was a big question for me. And she became, I would say, she was so transformed by this that when she finally passed on, no one could cry at her funeral. No one. Everyone was, you know, what's the point? It had been put into us that there's some energy that continues after death. So that we grew up, and my younger brothers and sisters especially, they grew up knowing that there's something that survives death. What that is, who knows? So that was a very important thing for me, because I guess I could trace my curiosity to understand deeper things to that moment.
And did you have any goals in your, as a child? What did you want to grow up to become?
I really didn't have an idea. I wasn't concerned either. For me, life was a big adventure, and whatever would come my way would be okay. That's I had a very liberal, as I say, education. I wasn't really much into relationships with girls and things like that. I was more of a studious type, let's say, more philosophical. At university also I became involved in the movement against the war in Vietnam, which was just ending actually at that time. And it was a big problem for Australia because many Australians were killed in the war, and the university students were all, you know. So I became involved a little bit in very extreme left-wing politics. But then I became disenchanted with that, because I could see that within the party there were the same sort of struggle between the party and the other parties. So the different factions of the party would you know, hate each other the same way that they hated the other party. So I don't want to know about this. So I got out of that. So I really I couldn't say that I had some very clear goals, no. I just wanted to understand what it was, what was this thing that survived death.
Did you have any desires to serve the society, become a social activist?
Not really. I could say that I was always like, if I saw some person in a difficult circumstance, I would always give something or take something and give them some clothes or something like that. But I wasn't consciously involved in social activism, no. I suppose if I was growing up these days, I would be probably a big environmentalist. But in those days, it wasn't such a big issue.
And what about your teenage days? Were you how did you make it like enjoyable, or did you find it any days? Were there any situations that made you feel lonely, empty?
No, I wouldn't say that. I felt that I was different.
Okay, how?
Because I was deeper, I suppose. I really couldn't get into parties, for example.
Okay.
And, I couldn't see the sense of sitting around drinking and just talking about, you know, stupid things. And I didn't want to be judgmental either. You know, I wouldn't say I was ever frivolous in that sense. But I was in a band also, so I like to play music. And so, but it was like a different sort of alternative band. It wasn't a normal rock band, for example. It was more different sort of music. So a little bit adventurous, as I said before.
But did this philosophical side, did it disturb? Did it like affect the friendship? Did you?
No, not at all.
No.
In fact, I was seen to be someone. Many of my friends came to me for advice, for example. I don't know why, if I had any good advice to give, but many people came to me for advice as if I was something that could, I had a deeper angle on things. So I was very popular, I would say. Everyone was friendly towards me.
And brother, you said you came in contact with the Brahmakumaris at the age of 21, and that is quite a young age to take up a deep philosophical knowledge like that is taught here.
Yeah, but I think I was prepared because I started really getting into the search when I was 15. So I was really quite prepared. I could understand, for example, the daily classes which are called murlis here. I didn't even do the introductory course, to be quite honest. The first day I came to the center, I came into what they call murli, first day, and I have not done the course until now.
What about the principles that are followed here? Did you?
Yeah, I was already following them.
You were already a vegetarian.
No, but also I was following Raja Yoga Patanjali deeply, and it's the same principles, all of them.
So you had no difficulty at all in the transition?
No, not
but
at all.
In fact, there was no transition in your lifestyle?
No, I didn't feel any transition. But the big thing was that I understood what is this thing that survives death, which is me, the soul. That was the big difference, because until then I had no idea that I, the thinking being, the one who's looking through the eyes, the one who's listening through the ears, the one that's speaking through the mouth, in fact is a spiritual energy. I thought the soul was something else, different from the mind, for example, which Patanjali and other sages would teach. But I understood that the mind is a fact. And these things were very important for me, maybe not for many people, but to understand that the mind is a faculty of the soul itself was a huge discovery for me, and not different. So that means I'm the thinking being. I think. It's not the mind is some other thing. It's me. It's the way I operate when I'm interacting with this physical world. I have to use thoughts, and I have to associate things. So the intellect, the buddhi, right? I have to. So this is me here in this world, and that was fundamental for me. Many things fell into place just from that point.
And what are the relations you experience with God now that you're on this journey?
I would say more than anything, it's like companionship. Of course, you can see the aspect of the father and how you looked after, and the aspect of the teacher, and how you get these jewels of knowledge that have been revealed through Prajapita Brahma. You get the guidance, this is the way you should do, and this is the way you shouldn't do. That's very clear, but in practice it's more companionship. Because I have to do a lot of things together with God. And so how can you not be a companion? But I really feel that I'm a brother to a lot of other people, and I'm the opposite of bossy sort of person. I really make sure that the people are in front, especially in that part of the world. I'm a foreigner, right? So the local people should be doing the things, and I make sure that they're okay and happy. That's all I have to do. And in that I have to have this companionship, because I'm the instrument, not of my own ego, but of God, right?
And what are the feelings that you get in his companionship? Like, do you feel it real, like a real companion? How do you feel his presence?
I think when something's happening, either I get the insight in the meditation what to do, and it becomes very clear, or in the next day, in the next morning class, in what we call the murli, I get the you know the right thing. And so there's like, you know, it's a partnership sort of thing. And so the feeling of closeness, a feeling of respect, and of course I have to try to see me always as God sees me, and not as I think I am. And I have to clean out my vision of others so that I'm seeing others also as how they really are, and not how my ego says that they are. And so these things are, you know, it's a constant, I guess, companionship in the sense of constancy. You know, there's some constant backup, constant support for the things that I have to do. In that sense. So I feel very confident.
So did this companionship help you in conquering your ego? Did you ever face any situations where your ego...
Oh, I think all of us do. Because the thing about the ego is that it's very blind. And of course, if there's an attack of ego, you don't know about it until later. And so you can't realize, you think you're completely right, but in fact something didn't work and something, you know, got spoiled, and so therefore you make up, okay, in this sort of situation, the conditions like this, next time I'll try to be more real. And I think the opposite of ego is not, you could say it's humility, but I think it's more reality. You know, ego is completely false in a sense. It gives you a completely distorted image of things and of people. For example, all of us have been labelled in our lives by this one or the other one, but no one is the label, right? If you ask people, have you been labelled? Yes. Are you those labels? No. So how many people that I keep in my inner gallery with their, you know, with their image and the label, and this one label, this one's a difficult person, this one's a horrible person, this one's, you know, very quiet. Those labels are completely false, and they're all ego-based. My own judgment, I'm better or worse, because ego has two sides. Yeah, I'm better than others and I'm worse than others. Now, if I remove all of the labels, I'm real. People are what they are, without any labels, and I have to try to see that, and that's the effort.
And now that you are a coordinator, what difference do you find in the way you serve? Like before you were working and running the center, but now you're full-time running the center.
Yeah.
So.
Centers, 120 actually.
Centers.
Yeah.
So, do you find it a better way of serving, or?
I think one of the things is that a lot of the very close contacts, you see, it's very different when you visit somebody. Let's say you visit some important person and you give them a present, or give them toli or sweets, you know, and you give them some literature, and then they look at it and they put it in the drawer, right? And then you're probably one of 20 people who have visited those important people in the last 2 weeks, right? But if you're working side by side with people, and they see you under the same sort of situations that they're in, and they see how you react very clearly and concisely and very calmly to the same sort of pressures that they're under, then they get really impressed. Because what people expect from spiritual beings, they expect spiritual people to be, you know, on the moon, or, you know, away, head shaved, living in a cave somewhere, or not useful. Now, if you can be very professionally accurate and at the same time very spiritual, they become very impressed. So I would say that, I mean, that sort of the work that we have to do in an organizational sense is not different from any other corporation in a sense. The difference is that it's a family, a spiritual family. And in Brahmakumaris we can't do that because people are volunteers. So you have to really make efforts to, in the relationship side, to make people, you know, to feel their own importance and feel included. And so it's really helping people to bring out the best in them. That's the big, I would say, leadership. And I've had a lot of experience in that field. I did a pilot for the second biggest telecommunications company in the world, and it's now the main course that their top executives run in the corporate university that they have, on leading high-performing teams. That was the name of the course. So I developed that course. It's still there at the university. But you can't use that sort of logic with Brahmakumaris volunteers. It's a different sort of art, I would say, because that ethic of hiring and firing is not there, you know. So in the Brahmakumaris we have to inspire. It's not about hiring and firing. We have to inspire, and that's the challenge.
But brother, will it be difficult if I want to, seeing the professional stress and the pressure that you know, people commonly face, will it be difficult for me to take out time for spiritual practice, say meditation, say going deeper in the knowledge?
I can say that my own life was, I've been always extremely busy. My agenda, if people see my agenda, it's crazy, you know, traveling so much and all over the place. So it's not that I've had, let's say, a restful life, but at the same time, it's not really a question of making time out, it's a question of changing attitude, you know. If you divide your life into, you know, how much sleep you have, how much work you do, how much study you have to do, and so on, these are the basic things. And if you want to improve the quality of your life, it's not something else, it's not time out. Just doing the basic things of working, living, eating, sleeping, bathing, buying, and so on. Sitting in the traffic lights, you know. In the cities these days, in São Paulo, that's where I live, you will spend 2 hours in the traffic every day if you go to work. And so you know, it's not about I need some extra time. No, how do I improve the consciousness that I have when I work, when I eat, when I sleep, when I'm sitting in the traffic, and so on. That's the challenge. So it's not that we become two people. I'm a spiritual person when I'm not at work, and then I'm a, you know, that dichotomy, that shouldn't be there. So I'm one person, and if I become centered, I interact with people at work from that center. Then I see my family, I interact, I do what I have to do. Now I'm walking in the street, I mean, but I haven't become a different person. Otherwise it becomes very schizophrenic. I'm spiritual when I meditate, and then suddenly I get back into the traffic and the confusion at work and I become another being. No, that's very schizophrenic. No, I have to spiritualize everything, and it's an attitude rather than time.
And you said from your childhood you were spiritually inclined, very philosophical. But say if I am a person who is a firm believer of science, I just believe in whatever is proved by science, then will this spiritual knowledge be difficult for me to accept? Or
well, I think it's a different order of logic. You can't prove physically with physical instruments by the existence of the human soul, but you can prove it by inference. You can prove it by experience. You can have your own experience. So the invitation is that it's a different order of logic. There are things that science cannot explain and never will be able to explain because there are different levels of existence. There's if you want to go towards the deeper type of science, you have to look at quantum mechanics, because quantum mechanics is the beginning. It's where physical reality and the understanding of it ends and the spirituality starts. Because one of the implications of quantum mechanics is that our thinking orders reality, you know. There's a new theory around which is called biocentrism, which is completely the opposite of, you know, the physical vision of the world and the universe is the physical world and universe existed, and then life came, and we have to adapt ourselves to all of this physical arrangement. Biocentrism, which is a very, very new science, tells us that no, life exists, and physical reality adapts to life. And I mean, that's equally valid, you know. And if you explore that, it makes much more sense than us trying to adapt ourselves into a physical universe that's existed forever, and we've only existed for, you know, human life anyway, they say, has only existed for 100,000 years. That's what they say. But what we understand here is that no, life has always been around, and the physical universe has always been around, and they've been performing a dance forever. So I would suggest to the people who are scientifically inclined to ask more questions. They don't have, if you go to the Big Bang, for example, okay, wonderful, but what was before that? What caused it? They can't answer. And if, you know, they measure the universe expanding, and they say, oh, this is because there was a Big Bang way back in the past, billions of years ago. No. And if the universe is just expanding and contracting, how would you know? So there are a lot of things that a scientifically inclined person could ask.
So this knowledge can be applicable to all people from all walks of life, from all professions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want to enjoy life, for example, okay, you want respect. You want respect. You have to give respect, right? And that's, we all know that from childhood. If you want joy from the way from your work, you have to do your work joyfully. If you want peace, you have to create conditions for that to happen. You can't have the golden egg unless you have that sort of goose who can lay golden eggs. You can't have the peace, the love and the happiness unless you do something to produce it.
So yet another episode with Brother Ken, and we have shared on this platform so many experiences that we ourselves can relate to, because it is what he himself practically experienced. Hoping that these experiences do inspire you to you know, question yourself on these lines and say start this spiritual journey, and hoping you will join us in the next episode. We will be taking leave now. Thank you, brother, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, viewers, for joining us in this episode. Have a good day.